Hello everybody, this is Rachel the Student Witch, and I'm here to share my paper planning systems, or systems plural, with you. And I thought about actually titling this video paper planning porn for those of you who just love watching bullet journal videos and plan with me videos like I do, but I didn't want to get flagged by YouTube or offend anybody, I guess. So this is paper planning porn, don't get me wrong, but I'll just have to use a slightly different title for this video. Anyhow, so let's start with the materials first. So this is my bullet journal. It's an A5 Moleskine journal with the grid, not the dot grid, but just a kind of like graph paper. I'm still learning the fancy terminology. Like I was Googling different types of journals yesterday because I know it's not even September, but my mind is already just craving that new bullet journal. Like I want to sit down and set it up for next year, my 2019 bullet journal. I'm so excited. But anyway, I was looking up different brands just to see what my options are. I think I might try out the Leuchtturm 1917, the type of bullet journal that practically everybody uses, just to check it out. I think it might be slightly larger than this one by like maybe 1/4 of an inch this way or that way. I'm not really sure. But if you hear a vibrating, that's my phone. My parents are calling me. I'll call them back. But anyway, I was learning the fancy terminology. I'm super excited to get my journal, my new journal for next year. I'm really inspired by Jessica Starr, the Story Witch, by her Plan With Me videos. I think I'm going to buy the Llewellyn Witch's date book planner for next year, and I'm going to kind of steal some ideas from Jessica, if she doesn't mind, of actually kind of ripping out pages from the different witchy kind of planners and date books and gluing them into her personal bullet journal and kind of planning around that and playing around with the images and things like that. I'm excited to kind of decorate my journal more because my first bullet journal and this one have been more minimalist and just kind of more utilitarian, so I'm excited to kind of play around more with decorating. Anyhow, I'm just going to show you kind of August through September or early October in here because I've made a few changes in how I kind of set up my weekly spreads, and then I have a couple of other planners here which I'll show you in a minute. But yes, let's get back to materials. So this is a Moleskine. As far as pens go, I'm really cheap and I just use these Sharpie pens. This is the Sharpie fine pen, a very fine tip. And then this is slightly thicker. This is the medium pen. I find they work well enough. I mean, I'm not too fancy. I don't do any calligraphy or anything like that because I just don't have the patience for it. So you're going to be privy to my, 8-year-old boy handwriting. But I mean, it's legible to me and it's unique to me, right? So anyway, I'm not really into fancy calligraphy pens or anything like that, so I know there's Tombos and paint brushes, pens, and all sorts of fancy stuff, but if you're kind of looking to go the cheap route like me, you can just get some Sharpie pens, and they work great. I also like to use every once in a while this Pilot Precise V5 RT pen, which I'm pretty sure I bought in a pack of 2, fairly cheap, no more than $3 or $4 for a pack of 2 of these. I also have other colors and more pens in here. I got this pencil case last year, I believe last year at a Walmart. Has flamingos on it. I like it. So in the front pocket we have a pencil, some more of these Pilot pens. These are also Pilot pens, but they're gel pens, so I have just purple, pink, a kind of wine red color, and blue for any time I want to add some color, and also color code some things, which you'll see in the bullet journal when I give you a sneak peek at it. This is my favorite type of eraser, a Pentel. And then, since these are the pens that I use when I also, when I'm reading and doing research and stuff, I also hold my highlighters and some Sharpies back here. Some more classic Sharpies, not necessarily the Sharpie pen, but just good old Sharpie. So that's where I keep those. And then I really like these. This is by Art Alternatives Fine Line pens in an array of colors. Again, if I just want to add a little pop of color, like I said earlier, this bullet journal is pretty minimalist as bullet journals go. But just in case I wanted to change some of the colors of the different headers or titles of stuff, I can use these. I got these on sale at an art supply store in Louisiana, so I have no idea what their normal price is. I got them for about $12 or $15 though, and they're still going strong. I've had them for I think over a year. And then you got good old Crayola, preferred by teachers. So I have some of these super tips where you can use the point to draw thin or color in thicker if I want to add a little bit more color decoration, and these just good old thin Crayola markers. So I don't get too fancy. Maybe someday I will when I have a little bit more cash to spend on this, but I am excited about next year, adding some of the images and little pages from the Llewellyn, I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that word, Llewellyn Witches Datebook. I'm really excited about that, especially when I do my kind of month at a glance kind of spread. But anyway, let's get into this one. So my month at a glance is very simple. I just have the day of the week and the date on one, going down one side, and then I just write down what's going on, if I have any major appointments or applications due or payments I need to make or people's birthdays. I forgot in the month of August to put in the moon cycle, but if we skip ahead to the beginning of September, you'll see here I have the different moon cycles. But yeah, so very simple, very minimalist, and then I have very simple gratitude kind of page where I just write down one or two things for each day of the month that I'm thankful for. And then I have my monthly goals tarot card reading. And I threw in an extra oracle card here from the Work Your Light Oracle, which I got recently. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. It lives on my research altar because it's perfect for that. But anyway, so I focused my reading on academic goals, health and fitness goals, and spirituality, and then I added the extra Work Your Light Oracle. And then my weekly spread starts. So the first week of August was pretty blank because I took a trip. It was my best friend Wanda's birthday slash, that's a loud, what is it? Crotch rocket, as they say. Sorry about that. But it was her birthday slash bachelorette party, so we took a trip down to Gulf Shores, Alabama. On the Gulf Coast down there to the beach, which was amazing. So not much research or anything happened. Then And then we move forward in August, and let me just show you my current week here. It's currently Sunday, August 26th. So basically, I just have very simple, each day of the week has a block of space on the page, and I write down my daily tarot pull, and then I have my research tasks here, and then the classic bullets are more for just tasks or things I need to clean around the house, basically. And then I'll add a little space for either when I want to do meditation, or if we're going to the gym, or if I think I have time for some pleasure reading, I'll write down what I'm reading and that kind of stuff. So overall, I really like this setup because it is so simple. Some of my previous weekly spreads were just way too time consuming. So I really wanted to boil it down to the essentials. Just have enough space where I can write down what I need to get done that day and keep track of how productive I am, or keep track of what I need to clean around the house and all that jazz. But I've gotten the itch to kind of shake things up a bit. So if we flip here, you'll see on September 1st, I started coloring in the little date flags here to mark that a new month has started. And then we go to September. This is September at a glance, and then space for my gratitude practice. And then I decided to try a habit tracker again. So I kind of abandoned habit trackers for a while because I just wasn't keeping up with them. But I think because I'm so busy, I'm doing research and preparing my prospectus and dissertation. I'm applying for grants and fellowships. I'm sending in proposals to go to academic conferences. Like, there's a lot going on, and so I need to remember to practice self-care. So this will be my self-care tracker for the month of September, and I have little color-coded symbols for just 4 simple things that I want to track. Did I take a nap that day? Did I do yoga? Did I go to the gym? And did I meditate? And they kind of go from bottom to top in terms of level of importance and frequency. So I definitely want to try to meditate every day. I try to go to the gym 3 times a week. I try to do yoga twice a week, and I do yoga at the same gym, which is just right down the street, and all the fitness classes are included in the monthly membership, so that's really convenient. It's less than 1/3 of a mile down the street. I have no excuse. But anyway, and did I take a nap that day? I want to experiment with nap taking because, and let me show you if I can pull it up here. I'm currently listening to on Audible Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams by Dr. Matthew Walker. And the author is a professor. I can't remember if he's more in the hard sciences, like is he approaching this from more of a biology or neurology perspective, or from a psychological perspective. And those kind of 2 perspectives can sometimes overlap. But he's a specialist in this. He's done research in this. He teaches at UC Berkeley, and so it's just really fascinating information. And he goes into what scientists know about sleep and the research that has been done about sleep, and what is the healthy amount of sleep, how much sleep should we be getting. What are the effects of the modern hectic lifestyle on our sleep patterns, and how could that be affecting our health in a negative way? He just goes into such detail and cites all sorts of different studies, but in a compelling, not dry, boring way, at least not according to my taste. But it's just been really fascinating. And there's a part, I can't remember what chapter he said this in, but he mentions naps and how a lot of more traditional cultures, meaning like the siesta tradition in Spain and in some Latin American countries, or in Greece, he talks about how there used to be a tradition of like taking an afternoon siesta type nap. It used to be very common and widely accepted, but also how in certain hunter-gatherer societies that still exist today, taking naps in the afternoon is still a practice. And he pointed to some studies that showed that when, for example, in Greece, I think the country was Greece, but in Greece, when for one reason or another that practice of taking the afternoon nap went away, in the population that they were studying, the rates of high blood pressure and heart disease went up. And, you know, so I, for the longest time, was taught either in one way or another that you shouldn't feel tired in the afternoon. If you do, that means there's something wrong with you. Maybe there's something wrong with your thyroid. You need to be energetic. You need to be peppy. You need to be a go-getter, blah, blah, blah. Fuck that. If I feel like I need to take a half an hour or even an hour nap in the afternoon, especially now that I actually have the time and the freedom to do that, because I gotta recognize that I'm not working a 9-to-5 job or anything like that. I'm just doing research and trying to make progress on my PhD. So I do have a lot more control and flexibility with my schedule. So I can actually schedule in a nap, and I kind of want to see if adding that afternoon cat nap between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, if that actually has an impact on my overall sense of well-being. So I'm just really curious about that, and actually listening to that audiobook and having him talk about how for some people, at least, that afternoon nap might be very important and might be very beneficial to their health. It just kind of made me feel just justified, like, yes, I can take a nap. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. It's okay to feel a little sleepy after lunch, you know? Anyhow, so I'm really curious about that nap, and check out that audiobook if you're interested in the science of sleep and why we dream. And he even talks about lucid dreaming and how that has been, there have actually been studies done about lucid dreaming. And it's been shown in MRI scans. It's just really, really fascinating stuff. So anyway, then I have a page for the tarot reading. And then I keep the same format throughout September, but I just have this kind of goldish orange color because I thought it was a nice early autumn kind of color. And then my best friend's wedding is on September 15th. We're flying to Kentucky for that. I'm so excited. I'm a, what's it called, a bridesmaid in the wedding, which is kind of cool. And then in the last week of September, I started experimenting and playing around with the different weekly setup that I've kind of been itching for. So basically, I wanted more space for my daily tarot pulls because there were some times, let me see if I can find a good example, like here. Today's tarot card, I got the Princess of Swords from the Tarot Apocalypsis, and I ran out of room. Like, I didn't feel like I had enough room to write down my thoughts and reflections about the card. And the same thing happened here on the 23rd. I started writing, and then I started going down into this territory, right? So I wanted to give myself in my weekly spreads, I wanted one full page for the tarot. And so I have my tarot wisdom on this side, and then I kind of messed this up a little bit, but I have Monday through Friday, but I ran out of space for the 29th and the 30th of September. But, you know, it's a weekend, no big deal. At least I have Monday through Friday here. But now I have a better idea of the amount of space that I can actually give to each day to make it all fit on one side of the page. And so if we take a look at October, I think I might have my new jam, my new favorite kind of spread, because I can still have the daily polls and have more room to write down my thoughts. Oop, I just hit the camera, sorry. But now, by moving the date and the time, or the day and the date, over on the left side instead of having it hanging down like this, that frees up all the space here for my research tasks and the household chores and whatnot. So I actually have room for Monday all the way until Sunday. So I hope that works. So I just did the first 2 full weeks of October because I didn't want to get too ahead of myself. So yeah, so basically that is my personal bullet journal. If I haven't already by now, I will include a link that will pop up over here to kind of a walkthrough of this year's bullet journal setup that I did at the beginning of the year, I think in January or maybe early February if you're interested. But now let's move on to my second most important journal. And this is my prospectus and thesis notes. So this includes all my notes, lists of books at the university library that I have checked out or want to check out, notes about research fellowship and grant applications, which is what I'm kind of focusing on right now. Just anything and everything related to my research goes into this cheap $1 composition notebook that I got at the grocery store. And I'm so glad I'm doing this. I like having a separate notebook just dedicated to my academic research, grant applications, even professional development and workshops and things like that. It will all go in here. I like that they're cheap, and I don't feel so bad quickly running through the paper in a cheap composition notebook, or if I have to tear out a page from here because I messed it up or whatever. I don't feel so bad about that because this thing is cheap as hell. But whereas in a $20 notebook, like my Moleskine, I feel like I have to be a little bit more careful and I don't want to waste any of the pages, right? So I kind of followed a little bit of the bullet journal system with this. So as you can see, I have an index here, and I put everything in, including the kitchen sink in here. If it's related to my research or academic work in any way, it goes into here. So I have it divided by months. I started in May, and we're now going from August to almost September. And then let me show you the most important aspects of this journal. So I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record. Let me grab it here. But seriously, if you're in a PhD program, you're thinking about getting a PhD, or you're about to write your dissertation, I cannot recommend this book enough, especially if you're in the social sciences or in the humanities, because her advice is specifically geared towards social sciences and humanities. But Dr. Peg Boyle-Single in this book has kind of, the best thing I could say about this book is that it helped me to see that it is possible to finish. Nearly 50% of PhD students don't finish though, which is scary, but it is possible to write that dissertation. It seems so daunting and scary, but it is possible. And one of the biggest takeaways I got from this book was her idea to graph. Sorry, I'm like playing around with a tripod here. But her idea to graph the progress you're making. So this is my graph for August. As you can see, it's kind of sporadic. There are big chunks of time where I just didn't have time in that day or the energy to do research or make any progress to my dissertation. But it's important to see that, because this graph helps you with two things. They're related. Like on the one hand, you can see where there might be a pattern where you might be losing time or wasting time. So it helps with accountability. But on the flip side, you can look at, let me find my month of July, and I'll fix this tripod. Okay. On the flip side, you can see where you had a somewhat productive month. Like here's my July graph. I worked a total of 31 hours and 20 minutes during the whole month of July. And as you can see, there were some days where I worked for 3 hours. There were other days where I only got 30 minutes in. But every minute counts. And every time you sit down to do work, it should be celebrated. Like, don't turn the dissertation into this big scary monster that you're afraid is going to pop out of the closet or from under your bed. Like, confront it. And graphing has really helped me to confront that monster under the bed, so to speak. But also celebrate my achievements and the progress that I'm making. So, I mean, it is only 31 hours throughout a whole month, but the thing is with academic research, it's not so much about the amount, it's more about the quality of the work and consistency. So if you sit down to work 1 or maybe 2 hours a day for 25 out of the 30 or 31 days a month, you will get that dissertation done. The problem is, or when dissertations don't get done, is when people go for weeks and weeks at a time without sitting down to do the work. And it's, it's kind of hard to explain if you're not in academia, but I can see how that can happen, especially when you're overloaded with teaching. If you have kids, if you're working a full-time job, it's so hard sometimes to find that 1 hour or even just 20 minutes to sit down and refresh your memory and write a page or two if you can, or read 5 pages of an article that you think might be helpful. It is so hard sometimes, and that's why I really appreciate this charting system that she talks about in this book, because it emphasizes consistency over amount. You can sit in front of a computer for 8 hours, but if you're not, if you're not being productive in those 8 hours, and then you don't return to the work until 2 weeks later, you're actually not going to get as much done versus sitting at a computer for 1 hour, being really productive in that 1 hour for 5 days in a row. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining myself at all, but yeah, consistency and charting your progress, charting every single time your butt is sitting at the desk or at the coffee shop or wherever you prefer to work. It's just so important, and it kind of helps you to celebrate those victories, those days when you're just feeling like crap. Maybe your depression is kicking in, maybe your anxiety is kicking in, maybe you feel overwhelmed by other things you gotta do, but you can still color in that 30 minutes that you did that day, and you can celebrate those 30 minutes because they're important, So, yeah, so I'm hoping my chart for September will look a lot better than my chart for August, but August I just had way too many social commitments. I had a bachelorette party to go to in Alabama. I traveled to New Orleans for a part of that. It's the beginning of the academic year here, so I've had to kind of help my partner out with that because he's teaching brand new classes and he needed me to kind of pick up some extra work around the house so that he could kind of, get his classes ready. It's just been a very chaotic month. And so I understand that, so I'm not going to beat myself up about that, but I do hope that my chart for September is going to be better. Another thing that kind of makes the August chart different that I'm experimenting with is adding more categories for work. So initially I just had pre-writing and writing. So pre-writing is all the research and the outlining that you do before you actually sit down to write your chapters, right? So pre-writing and writing, but then I added this grant and fellowship applications color here, this orange that you see, because that is going to take a lot of my time, and ultimately it's academic work to me. It's, you know, the work that I'm expected to know how to do. To make yourself more competitive on the academic job market, you are expected to know how to bring funding into the department that is looking to hire you. So if you have grants, if you've been awarded grants and fellowships as a graduate student, that just makes your resume, or, well, what we call a CV, all the better. So I'm kind of looking at this current season, this grant and fellowship season, because most of the applications are due between October and December, as yet another round for me to practice. And I really hope I get something. If not this year, then maybe next year, because that would be great. And like, on top of making my CV look really good, and possibly helping me get a job in the future, it's money, and it's money that we could really use. But anyway, I also added this little yellow category here that you see of professional development, because my university on Friday offered a 1-hour webinar about cover letters and resumes. So I attended that webinar, and so I counted that, because that's an hour of my time that I dedicated to my career. Ultimately, the research I do, the writing I do on my dissertation, and the grant and fellowship applications that I'm doing, this is all career building stuff. So I think it counts, and so I chart it. So yeah, in addition to these kinds of charts that I do every month, I also, for example, write down notes. For example, I'm writing or about to really start writing my prospectus right now. So I need to figure out my approach to history, the archive, and the body, because that is kind of like the theoretical basis for my project, my dissertation. And so I was reading Foucault, and then I had some thoughts about medieval scholasticism to Marxist historical materialism, and how history has been treated and studied in Europe. And Diana Taylor, The Archive and the Repertoire, that's a very important performance studies work. Nicole Guidotti Hernandez, and her really great book called Unspeakable Violence, which talks about the violence that happened along the U.S.-Mexican border, not in the present day, but in the 19th century, which is really, really interesting. And so, yeah, I mean, just writing down my thoughts and notes about all of these little factors that will play into my dissertation. So if you're working on research or any type of writing project, I highly recommend just getting a cheap journal and just going to town with it and tracking your time for the reasons that I stated earlier. And finally, I got another cheap $1 composition notebook, but this one is for my website, my blog, my social media presence as the Student Witch. And so this is something that I'm still kind of experimenting with, but if you are an online content creator, whether you do it for coin or not, I do not, think about getting a separate journal to kind of track your progress and growth, but also have a space to write down notes for the content that you want to create. So since this year, actually just a few weeks ago, I launched my website, which is linked below. I thought it would be good to kind of keep all of my StudentWitch online presence and content kind of in one place. So just like the bullet journal and the research journal, I have an index that's divided into months. And then I have a place for my goals and aspirations. You know, launching my website, I can check that off. That's so awesome. I'm so excited. Produce consistent, engaging, and organized content. I really want to make sure that my content is a little bit more organized and planned out. I used to just make YouTube videos whenever I felt like it, and I still will do that. But I also kind of want to create series, like, well, you'll see here when I show you my September kind of layout. And also grow. Oops, sorry, I keep hitting the camera, but to reach more people. And then I have why I'm doing this, just to give me a space to come back and remember why I'm doing this. And then rules and boundaries. Number 1, be genuine, come at it from the heart. 2, set boundaries. And 3, have fun, get to know people, and remember why you started doing this. So those are my 3 basic rules. And then I gave myself a tarot reading. Well, actually, it was with the Work Your Light Oracle, so it's an oracle reading, but whatever. And the 3 themes for the tarot or oracle reading were connections, community, and confidence. So I drew a card for each one of those themes and did a little reading with that. So I write down my notes for the type of content I want to create. Like, here's an idea that I came up with for a video for my Witching Through Grad School series, which is a series I already started last year, I think. But this is about how to use the tarot and the elements for the writing process. And so I have just, you know, some basic notes about that, for example. But each month I start off with an overview page. And I just kind of write down the content that I would like to create for that month. And sometimes I get to all of the content, and sometimes I don't. And so I just kind of forward it or migrate it to the next month. So for September, I have a couple of blog posts and a newsletter that I want to do. I have my YouTube videos that I'm thinking about doing. I have 4, but I'm probably only going to get to 3. And it's the 3 that I mentioned in my newsletter. Yeah, by the way, let me shamelessly kind of advertise myself here. If you look in the description box, you'll find a link to my website. And when you go to my website, you can sign up for my newsletter. And don't worry, I'm not going to bombard your inbox with like daily newsletters or anything like that. But every month or 2, just whenever I have the time, or if there's like a big festival coming, like Samhain, for example, or an important full moon or something like that, I might send out a newsletter. Like today, August 26th, is the full moon in Pisces, and I actually sent out my first newsletter today, which I'm so excited and proud of myself for. But anyway, so if you want a sneak peek into future content, which I mentioned a few of these videos and series that I want to start up in September in my first newsletter that I just sent out today. But if you want a sneak peek, but also some of my thoughts on the tarot, and I showed one of my personal tarot readings and how I kind of broke it down, and then I gave some guiding questions, and the theme for the reading was surrender, because that has been like it's just been the theme of the summer for like the past 3 or 4 months, is surrender. So I have my thoughts on surrender and what that means to me and how that is pertinent to what I'm currently going through in my life. And I talk about all of that in my newsletter. So I really like that format, and I think that all future newsletters are going to be like that. So if you're interested in something like that, maybe receiving a newsletter once every month or 2, just to get to know me better and to look forward to some of the content I'm creating, click on my website link below and you'll be able to sign up for the newsletter. All you have to do is provide your email address, and that's that. So one of the things that I mentioned in my newsletter is starting a new series now that it's September or almost September, and in the Northern Hemisphere that means it's the beginning of the academic year, and since I'm an academic, I can't help myself. I gotta create a somewhat kind of vague syllabus when it comes to my witchy studies. So I'm creating a witchy studies playlist on my channel, and there will be accompanying blog posts to go with each video. So I'm dividing each semester, so from September to December and then January to May. That's the 2 semesters here in the Northern Hemisphere usually. So for the fall semester, September to December, I'm dividing that into 2 units. And the first unit is Chaos and Chaos Magic. And so I am currently reading and going through this list of books. I finished Condensed Chaos finally a few weeks ago, and I'm about 10 chapters away from finishing Hands-on Chaos Magic. And then I want to read the 7 Life Lessons of Chaos, and while I'm working through the books, I'm also using a tarot deck. And most of the decks are decks that I already own, but I kind of like working with them through the lens of the unit that I'm currently going through. So I've been working with the Tarot Apocalypsis through the lens of Chaos and Chaos Magic, which has been really interesting. So at the end of this unit in September, when I'm finally done reading all of this, I will, first of all, on my channel, on my YouTube channel, I'll make a video talking about my impressions of the book and do I recommend the books or not, and also kind of share some of my thoughts about the tarot deck that I'm working in conjunction with the books that I'm reading, all under the theme of the unit theme, right? And then on my website, I'll write a blog post just kind of condensing my thoughts in written form. There'll be a blurb or a little review or summary of each of the books that I read, including some of the most impactful quotes from the book, just to give you a little snapshot into the book if you're thinking about reading it. And then I'll include some of my thoughts about the tarot deck and how that relates to the theme that I chose for that unit. So yeah, Unit 1 is Chaos and Chaos Magic. I hope to have that video and blog post out by mid-September, hopefully. And then Unit 2 will be, what is Unit 2? Secular Buddhism and Mindfulness, because I already have a bunch of books on that I'm excited to sink my teeth into. So yeah, I have the fall semester figured out. So I'm excited about that. So be on the lookout for that. Sign up for the newsletter if you feel like it. And yeah, that is my social media witchy blog website journal. So yeah, those are all of my planners/journals and the materials that I use. I hope you found this interesting, and the next video you'll see from me will probably be in early September, talking about either might be my Witching Through Grad School series or a tarot series that I'm looking to get started. We'll see what happens, but yeah. Share in the comments below, what are your preferred journaling methods? Do you just have a bullet journal and you put everything in there? Do you have separate journals for the different aspects of your life? Do you have like a witchy journal and then a work journal? Or I'm curious to see if anybody else out there has a social media or online presence journal, just to keep track of all that, because it is very enjoyable, but it does take time and effort, so a little bit of organizing goes a long way. Anyhow, leave your comments below. Feel free to VR if you're interested, and until next time, many blessings. Bye!